Now it's time to get to the very first session, which I shall be moderating, and the topic is dedicated to the 30th anniversary of Kazakhstan's independence. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's been almost 20 years since I first set foot on Kazakh soil, and I've been coming back every year since, with the exception of 2020. And as we all know, that was a very strange year for everyone. So in those 2 decades, Kazakhstan has become like a second home to me, and I've watched it change and grow in the most amazing way. I love it here. I consider myself an unofficial ambassador, bringing many people from around the world to come and visit this country, this beautiful country. And it was only about 10 years before I first came to Kazakhstan that it actually became an independent country as the Soviet Union dissolved, as you know. So it's really remarkable how far things have moved since then. That's why this first session is dedicated to the 30th anniversary of Kazakhstan's independence. To help us see this from a number of perspectives, I have some top-level guests, some in person, some remotely, either through video messages or joining us online. So let's start getting the guests who are here to join me on stage up to join me here. I'd like to invite up on stage the chairperson of the Senate of Kazakhstan, Maulen Ashimbayev. Welcome, sir. The UNDP's resident representative in the country here, Yakup Beris. Thank you, sir. And the Deputy Executive Director of the Nursultan Nazarbayev Foundation, Igor Rogov, who also serves as the Chairman of the Commission on Human Rights under the President and is on the Venice Commission of the Council of Europe. Joining us online is the Chairman of the British-Kazakh Society, Rupert Goodman. And the other panelists who sent in video messages we'll see are Valentina, Matviyenko, the chairwoman of the Federation Council of Russia, and Mustafa, Shentop, the Speaker of the Grand National Assembly of Turkey. We'll be hearing from them as well. So, gentlemen and participants, thank you very much. Each will give their perspective on Kazakhstan in the past 30 years. And I'm going to start with the chairperson of the Senate of Kazakhstan, Mr. Maulen Ashimbayev, and ask for your contribution, please, sir.
The forum, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank Dariga Nazarbayeva and other colleagues for the invitation to participate in the forum. Traditionally, the Media Forum addresses a range of important and complex topics. I have every confidence that the 17th Media Forum will be equally productive and meaningful and will help us in our quest to find answers to some of the most critical questions of our time. The first session is dedicated to the 30th anniversary of Kazakhstan's independence. This is a tremendously significant date for our nation. A lot of information on this topic has been published or aired in past few years, and today my colleagues and I will share our perspectives and insights on the subject. I hope that you will find the conversation to be both fruitful and informative. Уважаемые участники форума,
Dear participants of the forum, in the last 30 years, our country has achieved absolutely tremendous results in many spheres. A lot has been done for the creation and reinforcement of an independent state. From a peripheral republic of the former USSR, Kazakhstan transformed into recognized, respected, modern state. A state that firmly stands on its own legs, a state that confidently looks into the future. And today Kazakhstan is an independent state that makes its own significant contribution into international security and global development. Today we can with full confidence state that in the last 30 years Kazakhstan has ascertained itself as an independent state. Within the country, we have the full consensus that the independence is our main value. And based on such platform, the modern model of economic, social, and political development is functioning, and the model has demonstrated and ascertained its survivability and success. Any model is trialed throughout crisis situations, and in this case, we more or less successfully have passed through a number of economic crises back in the 90s, in the 2000s. Starting from the last year, we are encountering coronavirus pandemic, and despite all hardships, we preserve social and economic stability. Our model has been trialed when we were performing the power transit in the country, and the process took place in full compliance to the national constitution, the legislation of our country, stable situation, and with the preservation of the continuity of strategic course that proves our model of development. Of course, not problems have been resolved. We have some challenges and hardships that we encounter every day, but looks like today there is no country on planet Earth that would not have problems. The main thing is to have the proper attitude to the problems. They should not regress us, they should stimulate us to progress onwards. A lot has been done in the past 30 years. Today we will be discussing that topic, and I just would like to enumerate a number of facts for our distinguished guests. We have fully formalized state institutions and state administration system. Of vital importance was a delimitation of national borders. By 2005, our country, the first one among post-Soviets, fulfilled the delimitation of all inshore borders, more than 13,000 kilometers. We have gotten used to talking about that with confidence. 13,000 kilometers of the national border. Let us analyze, is it much or not that much? If to compare that figure to broadly known indicators, this is far more than the diameter of the Earth, which is 13.7 thousand kilometers. That was a very scrupulous work, meter per meter, approval for each meter of the national border. Then we signed the Convention about the legal status of the Caspian Sea that finally settled down all frontier questions in the Caspian. One of the bright demonstrations of our independence is, of course, our new capital, Nursultan, where today's forum is taking place. The young Kazakh capital is the city of the dreams that have been realized for hundreds of thousands of citizens of Kazakhstan. Today we have more than 6% of the total population domiciled here. This is not one of the youngest capitals only, but demographically, this is one of the youngest cities in the world. The average age here is 30 years. And at the same time, each fifth citizen of the city is a child below 9 years of age. 22% of the citizens of the city are children below 9 years of age. That indicates at high demographic potential of this urban community. In the last 30 years, we have hopped tremendously economically. The GDP has increased by 15 times, from 11 billion to 171 billion US dollars. Kazakhstan holds the share which is more than 50% of the total Central Asian GDP. Kazakhstan is Central Asia's absolute leader in attraction of foreign investments. 70% of capitals invested into the region come to Kazakhstan. Throughout the years of independence, the volume of direct investments totaled 365 billion US dollars. I can go ahead enumerating our achievements, but considering the time limitations, I would like to explain my vision of the reasons why we are so dynamically developing and so successful. I will highlight three, to my mind, most important reasons. First of all, that is the person of the first president, Yelbasi Nursultan Abishevich Nazarbayev. All achievements of this nation throughout the years of independence are integrally associated with the name of our first president. It is to the merit of his working capability, decisiveness, resilience, charisma, did we manage to pass all through complications and crises of the 90s and build an independent state. Throughout, for several years, I worked in various responsible posts in President's administration. I personally saw myself how each responsible decision was weighted, measured, digested, and processed by our first president. I saw the colossal responsibility he was assuming for this nation. I saw the colossal labor of our Yelbasi 24/7 for the benefit of the country. I have reminded ourselves about the delimitation of the national border that exceeds the Earth's diameter. Each meter of the border was delimited as the result of most complicated negotiations that were conducted personally by our first president, Yelbasi Nursultan Nazarbayev. It is my sincere belief that the strengthening of our independence, the economic development, are all to the merit of the person of our first president, his personal characteristics, his colossal activity for the benefit of this nation. Another factor of dynamic development is the openness to the world. Since the very first days of independence, we've been implementing that policy. My very good colleague, Professor Frederick Starr from Johns Hopkins Center of the USA wrote a book, The Lost Enlightenment. This is a wonderful book, one of the best books to my mind about our region. And in that publication, he quite confidently discusses geography and argues that Kazakhstan is the center of global civilization, science, arts, starting from the 8th century. Our region for almost 4 centuries was without the attraction of was an intellectual and scientific hub of the region. In our cities, there were great scientists, astronomers, philosophers, poets who made a valueless contribution into development of global civilization. That is Abu Ali ibn Sina, the founder father of modern medicine, Al-Khwarizmi, the founder father of algebra and whole new branch of mathematics, Al-Farabi, musical theoretician whom they would call the second teacher of mankind after Aristotle. And that list, I could go ahead enumerating other great persons. But at a certain stage, that very bright civilization began to degrade, and for centuries, it would find itself in the peripheric zone of global development. Why did it happen? The most popular version is the Mongol conquest and the fading away of the Great Silk Road because of the maritime naval developments. The degrading process, as the research shows, began far before Genghis Khan and his Mongols came here. Dogmatism, zero tolerance, limited lifestyles of local elites caused the transformation of this region into a hermetic tank, into an isolated territory cut off from the most modern scientific views and thoughts. That's one of the reasons why Central Asia degraded and found itself in the peripheric zone of the global civilization. In that context, it is of utmost importance to remember that since the very first day of independence, Kazakhstan, under leadership of the first president Nazarbayev, remained open to the world, to innovation. We studied foreign experience. We adopted the best global practices that helped us to build constructive relationships with other nations, study from them, seek out new effective development models. Since the very first day we've been implemented policy of tolerance to other confessions and ethnic groups of races. The logical continuation of our policy of openness is the openness to the region, to the whole world, to our inclination to further adopt the best practices from abroad. Another great objective is to train administrators for future state. The administrators of the new formation, we've been building modern administration system, the new paradigm for economic developments. That's why starting from the first years of independence, we assigned priority to the training of new formation of governmental officials. The Polashak program that was founded in the crisis 90s is a good tool for implementation of that. Recently, we have granted more than 14.5 thousand stipends to talented students from Kazakhstan. So today, de facto, we can observe that the program has bred up the new generation, new genetic of state administrators. More than one half of Polashak graduates today are taking serious executive posts in business, in science, and in public administration sector. Those youngsters acquired wonderful education from best universities in the United States, in UK, in Europe, in the leading Asian states. In addition to Polashak, all these years, Yelbasi was bringing up new human assets, promising youngsters, promoting them to responsible posts. It was all done to form the pool of national assets for independent Kazakhstan. All those reasons, to my mind, constitute the platform for all those achievements in the last 30 years. Dear forum participants, today we are stepping on the new development trail. Our President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev, in his pre-election program, reported the key principles: continuity, justice, and progress. The policy is aimed at further modernization of economic and political systems in our country. That is, first of all, economic diversification, digitization, development of processing industry, as well as expansion of exports. One of the key tasks, as was established by the head of state, is the further political modernization. In the last 2 years, Kazakhstan has performed a complex set of political reforms. We have modernized our legislation about public meetings and assemblies, thus demonstrating our readiness to listen to alternative point of view and giving the carriers, the holders of the alternative points, platforms. Women, youngsters, today enjoy 30% quota in the course of elections to local executive bodies. We have facilitated the registration and election processes for alternative political parties. Today we are starting the process of election of local hakims. Further reforms are ongoing with special emphasis on human rights. In general, political reforms are not to the tribute of fashion. Those are not games, democratic games with the constituencies. This is the policy of the leadership of the country. That is the prerequisite for political sustained development, dynamic economic and social development in the nearest future. We are working hard to improve the effectivity of state administration system. We want to create a hearing state. The priority of Mr. Tokayev's agenda is the proper quality of human capital, healthcare, education, social protection. Ladies and gentlemen, today Kazakhstan is a dynamically developing state. In the last 3 decades, a lot has been done. The most principal achievement is the solid platform for our independent state. But there still is a lot to be done. Reinforcing the platform of our sovereignty, we need to further develop our country based on the principles of openness to the world, tolerance and democracy. Those are the key prerequisites for effective and successful development and prosperity for Kazakhstan in the 21st century. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Maulen Ashimbayev, for that fascinating look at the progress, regress, and reprogress in the region. I would now like to introduce you by video message to the chairwoman of the Federation Council of Russia, Valentina Matviyenko.
Уважаемые коллеги, я рада приветствовать вас на 17-м.
Dear colleagues, it is my pleasure to welcome you to the 17th Eurasian Media Forum. In the years that it was held, this has become a respected, significant platform which is highly sought for. And for many years, journalists, politicians, experts have been meeting here for open dialogue on the relevant issues. The attention of participants today is turned towards the effects on the media space from transformations in policy, environment, economy. Of course, we cannot find all answers to the challenges posed by quickly changing reality. But it is important to create an atmosphere of mutual respect for good discussions. And the organizers of the forum in Kazakhstan were always able to do so. In 2021, Kazakhstan is celebrating the 30th anniversary of independence, and one of the forum's session is devoted to that. We can learn a lot from Kazakhstan. It enjoys political stability, sustainable economic growth, the conditions are created for prosperity of people. Kazakhstan is always moving forward. President Tokayev has announced the concept of the listening state, which will promptly respond to all constructive requests of the citizens. And the society has received this approach well. It allowed the country to undergo reforms and implement large-scale initiatives. Throughout the years, Russia and Kazakhstan have been actively cooperating. There was always interaction between the presidents, the governments, the parliaments. Our relations can be called model relations. We highly appreciate the level of trust and understanding that we are enjoying. And this helps us in overcoming modern challenges. During the pandemic, our countries have supported each other, we've consulted with each other, we've exchanged experience. Kazakhstan is already manufacturing Sputnik V vaccine, which helps in vaccinating the people and overcoming the virus. The Kazakh saying says that your homeland is your fire that burns even better than the regular fire, and I'm sure that this fire will help you in reaching the success. And I wish all the participants of the forum great discussion and great talks. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you to Valentina Matviyenko for sending us that message. We're now honored to have a message sent to us by video by the Speaker of the Grand National Assembly of Turkey, Mustafa Shentop.
İlki 2002 yılında düzenlenen ve artık gelenekselleşen Avrasya Medya Forumu'nun 17. toplantısında sizleri sevgi ve saygıyla selamlıyorum. Bu güzel toplantıya programımın el vermemesi sebebiyle maalesef video mesaj yoluyla katılabiliyorum. Ancak bu ay sonunda ikili bir ziyaret gerçekleştirmek ve Türkpa toplantısına katılmak üzere kardeş Kazakistan'ın güzel başkenti Nursultan ve Türk dünyasının manevi başkentlerinden Türkistan'ı ziyaret edecek olmaktan büyük mutluluk duyuyorum. Forumun medya sektörünün gelişimine katkı sağlama ve açık diyalog ortamı oluşturma amacına ulaşmış olduğunu görmek memnuniyet vericidir. Bu vesileyle Komite Başkanı Sayın Dariga Nazarbayeva olmak üzere organizasyonda emeği geçen bütün yetkililere nazik davetleri için şükranlarımı sunmak istiyorum. Forumun verimli geçmesini ve bütün katılımcılar için yararlı olmasını diliyorum. Değerli konuklar, Avrasya Medya Forumu'nun bu yılki toplantısının Kazakistan Cumhuriyeti'nin bağımsızlığının 30. yıl dönümünü kutladığımız bir dönemde gerçekleştiriliyor olması özel bir anlam taşımaktadır. Kazak halkı uzun bir dönemden sonra 1991 yılında bağımsızlığına kavuşarak tekrar milli bir devlet ve bayrak altında yaşama bahtiyarlığına kavuşmuştur. Her ne kadar modern dönemde bağımsızlığının 30. yılını kutluyor olsa da Kazak halkının köklü bir tarihi ve devlet geleneği bulunmaktadır. Bu geçmiş aynı zamanda Türkler, Kazaklar ve diğer akraba halkların ortak tarihini teşkil etmektedir. Bu tarihi birikimden güç alarak bağımsızlığını kazanmasından bugüne kadar geçen süre zarfında her alanda gerçekleştirdiği atılımlarla Kazakistan, ülke içinde olduğu gibi küresel boyutta da barış ve güvenliğin kilit ülkelerinden biri haline gelmiştir. Bu bağlamda kurucu Cumhurbaşkanı Sayın Nursultan Nazarbayev'in liderliğinde Kazakistan diplomasisinin dünyaya kazandırdığı önemli bir gün olan uluslararası nükleer silahların test edilmesiyle mücadele gününü kısa bir süre önce 29 Ağustos'ta idrak etmiştik. Yine Kazakistan'ın koordinatörlüğünde 1993 yılında başlatılan Asya'da İşbirliği ve Güven Arttırıcı Önlemler Konferansı süreci güvenlik anlayışına çok boyutlu yaklaşımlar getirmektedir. Keza Suriye'de yaşanan trajedinin çözümü noktasında da Astana süreciyle başlatılan inisiyatifte Kazakistan'ın rolü taraflı tarafsız herkesin takdirini kazanmıştır. Bugün 17. toplantısını yaptığımız Avrasya Medya Forumu'nu da Kazakistan'ın başarılı bölgesel ve uluslararası girişimlerinden biri olarak gördüğümü ifade etmek istiyorum. Bağımsızlığından bu yana Kazakistan'ın nüfusu içerisindeki farklı etnik halklar arasında ahenk ve barışı sağlamada göstermiş olduğu başarı takdire şayandır. Kısa bir sürede kadim devlet geleneğinden aldığı güçle yönetimi inşa etmiş, demokratik ve müreffeh bir toplum oluşturma yolunda önemli mesafeler kat etmiştir. Anayasanın kabulünden çeyrek asır sonra 30 Ağustos'ta Anayasa Günü'nü coşkuyla kutlaması Kazakistan'ın en önemli kazanımları arasında yer alan toplumsal barış ve huzurun da bir göstergesini teşkil etmektedir. Değerli katılımcılar, Türkiye-Kazakistan ilişkileri çok özel ve anlamlıdır. 30 yıl önce 1991 yılında bütün Türk Cumhuriyetleri gibi Kazakistan da bağımsızlığını ilan etmiş, bunu ilk tanıyan ülke de Türkiye olmuştur. Bağımsızlığından kısa bir süre önce 1991 yılının Mart ayında merhum 8. Cumhurbaşkanı Turgut Özal'ın Kazakistan'ı ziyareti sırasında ülkelerimiz arasında kapsamlı bir işbirliği anlaşması imzalanmıştır. O tarihten bugüne kadar iki ülke arasındaki ilişkiler birçok alanda gelişmeye devam etmektedir. İlişkilerimiz 2009 yılında Stratejik Ortaklık Anlaşması'nın imzalanmasıyla daha üst bir seviyeye taşınmıştır. Önümüzdeki Mart ayında da diplomatik ilişkilerimizin kuruluşunun 30. yıl dönümünü kutlayacağız. Türkiye ve Kazakistan arasındaki ilişkiler çok taraflı platformlarda da başarıyla devam etmektedir. Bunların en belirginlerinden birisi temel amacı Türk dili konuşan devletler arasında kapsamlı işbirliğini derinleştirmek, bölgesel ve küresel barış ve istikrara katkıda bulunmak olan Türk Konseyi'dir. 12 Kasım'da İstanbul'da düzenleyeceğimiz Türk Konseyi zirvesi bu kapsamda büyük bir önem taşımaktadır. Değerli konuklar, bu duygu ve düşüncelerle hepinize bir kez daha en içten sevgi ve saygılarımı iletiyor. Avrasya Medya Forumu'nun 17. toplantısının bütün paydaşlarına başarılar diliyorum.
It was good to get that message from Mustafa Shentop from Turkey. It's a shame he couldn't join us, but it was appreciated he could send us that message of support. Well, Rupert Goodman is the chairman of the British-Kazakh Society. He's joining us online. Mr. Goodman, I'm glad you're able to join us through your online setup. Please give us your perspective on Kazakhstan 30 years on. Go ahead, sir.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and greetings from London. I hope you can hear me clearly.
Nicely, thank you.
Special thanks to the organisers of this excellent conference, and it gives me great pleasure to also send the best wishes from our Prime Minister, Boris Johnson. As chairman of the British-Kazakh Society, it gives me enormous pleasure to congratulate the leadership and people of Kazakhstan on the 30th anniversary of independence. This year is an historic milestone in Kazakhstan's history. I first visited Kazakhstan shortly after independence and have witnessed the country's many significant changes and achievements over the past 3 decades. Kazakhstan's transformation has been extraordinary, steering a careful course from a command economy to an open, market-led economic structure. First President Nursultan Nazarbayev is the architect of Kazakhstan's success, overseeing dramatic improvements in the living standards of the people of Kazakhstan, wisely establishing stable economic relations, and creating the conditions for significant economic growth. It is clear that with its strategic geographic location and dominant position in Central Asia, Kazakhstan now plays a key international role, helping to maintain stability in the region and offering major investment opportunities. Recently, I edited the book Father of the Nation, Man of Peace, which describes how 30 years ago, following the breakup of the Soviet Union, Nursultan Nazarbayev became the first president of an independent Kazakhstan. The country faced difficult times, but through determined leadership and in the face of many challenges, Kazakhstan has become one of the fastest developing and most dynamic states in Eurasia under his leadership. The first president has initiated many international initiatives with the aim of maintaining global security, promoting economic development, and encouraging interfaith harmony. It was Nursultan Nazarbayev who took the historic decision to renounce the world's 4th largest nuclear arsenal, enabling Kazakhstan and the entire Central Asia region to become free of nuclear weapons. He is a champion of a nuclear-free world, a heartfelt mission driven by passionate belief that the experiences Kazakhstan endured in the sphere of nuclear weaponry must act as a warning to the rest of humanity. Kazakhstan's development over the past 30 years has been guided by the first president's thoughtful leadership. My book records these achievements and assesses his role as a significant world leader who has articulated a clear vision for Kazakhstan as a secure, stable, and prosperous region. The twin objectives of security and stability, combined with economic development in the common interest, have informed Kazakhstan's international outlook. The first president's commitment to global cooperation and nuclear disarmament, as well as his success in strengthening relations with existing allies and forging new international partnerships, has resulted in improved security and greater economic opportunity for the people of Kazakhstan and the wider world. His leadership and vision in the domestic, regional, and global context, and the moral and intellectual courage required to transform Kazakhstan's social, economic, and political landscape provides lessons for the wider international community. I believe that Kazakhstan's dramatic transformation since independence marks out first President Nursultan Nazarbayev as the greatest nation builder to emerge from the post-Soviet era, Central Asia and the wider region. It is important that the younger generation, as well as the international community, understands this global contribution. The first president deserves the highest recognition, particularly for his legacy to mankind in the field of nuclear disarmament. Kazakhstan's economic, social, cultural, and diplomatic success over the past 30 years provides the foundation for President Tokayev's recent State of the Nation address. Building on this foundation, the President has set out a clear strategic vision for Kazakhstan in the post-pandemic world. Supporting business, enhancing the defense sector, and promoting 5 new social initiatives will, I believe, enable Kazakhstan to emerge as a safe, peaceful, prosperous, and confident nation in this historic 30th anniversary year. So, renewed congratulations to the leadership and people of Kazakhstan, and thank you very much for this inspiring conference. Thank you.
Mr. Rupert Goodman, thank you very much, sir. Well, I thank the panelists with me on stage here for their patience as we got all those messages in. I want to turn to one of my colleagues up here now, the Deputy Executive Director of the Nursultan Nazarbayev Foundation, Mr. Igor Rogov.
Спасибо большое.
Thank you very much. Good day, dear colleagues, dear ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, participants of Eurasia Media Forum. Today's activity, as has been already said for several times, dedicated to 30th anniversary of independence of our country. This jubilee is a firm indication of great achievements of this nation that has created a modern and a successful state. All our achievements are the result of the laborious activity of our citizens under leadership of the leader of nation, First President Nursultan Nazarbayev. These 30 years are a wonderful reason for us to think somehow about what has happened, and today we will hear various viewpoints by politicians, historians, economists, law enforcement officers, culture experts. All of them are righteous in their opinions, and the picture, the aggregate picture that comes as the result of various researches would not be full without the legal analysis, the analysis from the standpoint of a legal professional, how this process has been taken place and what the perspectives are. So, if to talk legally, I think it would be prudent to say that in modern history, state construction acquires various characters and patterns. Sometimes it happens because of national liberation struggle, sometimes because of the decomposition of states, revolutions, and riots. There are nuances that makes those processes different from each other's, processes in the 19th century from processes in the 20th century. So today, it's not enough to take control of post office, of the governmental buildings and police stations. It's not enough to conquer the power and declare it. In the 21st century, the key principle for the foundation of a state is legitimacy. This is the central moment. Who will prove that your regime is legitimate? If you prove you are righteous, you have a new state. Legitimacy is a broader term than formal law, formal compliance to legal norms. Legitimacy envisages, amongst others, the representation of interests of various groups of population. Much better if it is the dominating part of the society. Power received from masses is very important. That is why we have referendums, elections. Many newly independent states face this question, legitimacy, and trigger some arguments. Today we hear some echoes from those arguments, but Kazakh independence, acquisition of sovereignty by our republic was exceptionally legitimate, legally legitimate. You see, all of us, we keep our own track of independence starting from December 91, and we have solid platform for that. But if to take a look at the process from the legal standpoint, then we will pay attention to the fact that acquisition of independence was taking place step by step, and one such step was the foundation in April 1990 of the post of the President of the Kazakh Soviet Socialist Republic. And the Supreme Council of the Kazakh Soviet Socialist Republic elected Nursultan Nazarbayev as the President of the Kazakh Soviet Socialist Republic. In October 1990, we adopted a declaration about the sovereignty of the Kazakh Republic within the USSR. The next act was the election of our president on the 1st of December 1991. This is a special event that deserves a separate conversation. Not for free does our calendar contain such a date as the day of the first president. And 16th of December, we adopted the constitutional law about the state independence of the Republic of Kazakhstan. I must tell us that the legitimization process in the Republic did not end on that. The next stage was the design and the adoption by the Supreme Council in 1993 of the first constitution of independent Kazakhstan, as has been for many times pointed out by many experts and political scientists. That constitution was an intermediate draft. Not many principal questions were closed. For example, delineation of the powers and authorities. So it took us 1995 when we adopted the new constitution. And that constitution, the draft of the constitution, was brought to the national referendum. The dominating quantity adopted that constitution, approved it, and that was the indicator of its highest legitimacy. Independence of Kazakhstan and the person of Nursultan Nazarbayev in that process are interconnected and interdependent, because all the steps regarding acquisition of independence and its further reinforcement were initiated particularly by the person of Nursultan Nazarbayev. It was under his leadership that all reforms were taking place. He set all the route points, all the stages were clearly thought up, and they logically derive from each other's. His initiative, his steel power of will and personal courage ensured the success of our progress ahead. Commonly known is the personal contribution of Nursultan Nazarbayev into the text body of the document. He scrutinized several constitutions of foreign countries, and that is why, in the course of various public discussions and disputes, he would quote by heart certain provisions from other constitutions. Our constitution absorbed the best from other constitutions. Today, it is a purely Kazakhstan product. This is our national constitution. That's why when they say that Constitution of 1995 is Nazarbayev's constitution, those people are telling the truth. Interesting and attention-attracting is the following fact. Practically immediately after the adoption of the new constitution, that was back in 1995, our first president said that in the course of creation of appropriate economic, social, political platforms, we will see the process of decentralization and delegation of powers and authorities from president to government and parliament. It was then that many people, including our opponents, perceived that statement with a good portion of skepticism. They thought this is a regular pre-election rhetoric, but in 1998, 2 years later, the first significant steps were taken towards implementation of that program. When I say personal courage, fancy a head of state after adoption of the constitution. And we all think that this is for centuries. But now 3 years pass and the head of state offers a new constitutional reformation, exposing himself to criticism. Why did he do that? Basically, he extended the time for Senate deputies up to 6 years, time for Majlis deputies up to 5 years. The headcount of the Majlis was expanded. And, dear guests, be advised, Majlis is a lower chamber of our parliament, Senate is Senate. So, today, Majlis deputies are elected on basis of the party lists. We have reinforced the control function of both the chambers of the government in the supervision of the functioning of the government. We have ascertained the constitutional status of the government as an independent collegial body, and for the lawyers it is of specific importance to know the fact that today we have the court of juries in our juridical system.
I'm a little concerned about time because we have about 10 minutes left and we have one more panelist. Can I ask you if you might be able to sum up the final bit? Sorry. Thank you.
В общем, я не буду
So, dear colleagues, I shall not be enumerating all the reforms that have taken place. I just want to tell us that the next stage, the reform of 2017, cutting the time for president's term, increasing the independence of the government and the parliament. So those cardinal changes took place in 2017, quite recently, and giving its evaluation, the European Commission on the Venice Commission produced the highest evaluation of that reformation. We have strengthened the human rights sphere in our constitution. We have expanded the list of constitutional values under special protection. Those are the values that cannot be changed even when the constitution is amended. That is the independence of state, unitary character, territorial integration, forms of state governance, and other principles as staked into the platform by the first president, as well as the status of the first president, which remains unchanged. We have founded the post of the Human Rights Ombudsman in our country. That position is also provided for by the Constitution. Soon we will have a new law about Human Rights Ombudsman. And modern development dictates the necessity to analyze our constitution as well as its dynamic implementation in life. Our president, as has been already said today, Mr. Kassym-Jomart Tokayev, in his pre-election program, declared continuity of political course. Continuity is the effective proceeding of the course of the first president. That is strengthening of sovereignty and national security. That is stability, civil peace and public accord. That is dynamic economy and powerful social policy. Today, Nursultan Nazarbayev's paradigm reflects common human and national values according to social, economic, political, humanitarian, and other demands of state and society. That's why it is obvious to all of us that strict compliance to the spirit and the text of the Constitution is the factor of our success and stability. Our Constitution is full of traditional and modern values. Thank you for your attention.
Igor Rogov, спасибо большое. And last but not least, to our panelist here who's joining us as the resident representative in Kazakhstan of the UNDP, the United Nations Development Programme, Yakup Beris. And I start just by pointing out that it's 30 years ago that the UNDP started its Human Development Index, the HDI, which was at the same time as Kazakhstan got its independence, about the same timing. And I noted that in 2019, the report put Kazakhstan number 50 out of 189 recognized countries and territories the UN has. So I want to get your perspective on where things have gone 30 years on, sir.
Indeed, thank you very much, Mr. Khan. Excellency Ashimbayev and Mr. Igor Rogov, as well as the online speakers, have put a great account of the historical perspective on how the country had its journey for independence. And I come here with great admiration and respect. Of course, in that spirit, congratulate people of Kazakhstan with the 3 decades of independence. It's easier said than done. Of course, it cannot be packed into speeches to explain all the achievements. But you are right to put so. As a development organization, we have that perspective on how countries make their journeys from a development angle, and those development gains then have to be accounted in from that perspective. There's no unity on how to look at it. But as UNDP in 1990, when the development debate had been basically dominated by the story of GDP based on averages, the human development reports came with a perspective that perhaps it's better to measure the richness of human life rather than richness of economy to understand what development is. And then, of course, they looked into education beyond the income as well as health and the related indicators. So when I look at the historical account that has been shared by the speeches, I look at the results of what they achieved. And I picked up a few. Of course, implementing the key market reforms was at the heart of many things, and that started opening up many elements in the society, maybe redefined even state-society relationships. But of course, we see significant achievements in terms of poverty rates and unemployment, and this cannot come just by a historical perspective on what has been achieved. The poverty rates as well as unemployment rates is a great story achieved when you look at actually a relatively short period of time, and actually if you account the 1990s as the tumultuous period, so it's the story of the last 20 years more or less. I pick a focus, examples have been shared, the great achievement on the building a modern civil service. It is also much easier said than done, but there are a lot of efforts go into it, and this is usually the most sensitive aspect of public administration reforms. And introducing the modernity in civil service actually is at the heart of how you define state vis-a-vis the state-society relationships also. And there's a great story there too. And of course, naturally, this results in a good story of improving the public services also. The modern tools introduced into how services are delivered to people. These are the 4 elements: market reforms, social results like poverty, building the modern civil service, which is public administration reform, and public service delivery I would take as important parts. So you mentioned the Human Development Report. That actually adds richness to the story rather than highlights of achievements in one or the other area. You look at that index and comparing that to our 30-year history of the Human Development Reports. In 1990, Kazakhstan's HDI was 0.69, and today it is 0.825. This is about 20% jump, and many people who know how these indexes are produced is that it doesn't move very easily from year to year. It takes
doesn't sound
years. We are talking about a 20% jump, and we are talking about Kazakhstan being under 50, maybe this year is 51. But basically, it is at a very high human development group of countries together with Kazakhstan. So this perspective is equally important, of course, to add to all the great achievements on the political scene, on the international scene that we have heard from other colleagues. And what does that mean? For example, I'll give you other figures. I had taken notes on the educational element. Mean years of schooling, when you take it, that it increased by 3.8 years. Expected years of schooling increased by 3.2 years. So the children are able to actually have the education 3 to 4 years more compared to 1990 in the country. We are not talking about just enrollment rates, we are talking about actually taking the schooling. Life expectancy increased by 6.8 years compared to 1990. Of course, the GNI, gross national income, when you look at it, is 66.3% increase compared to 1990.
As we are approaching the end of the session, I might put a question to you based on conversations you and I have had. You say that, like many countries, Kazakhstan has to make now choices for the path forward, that it's at a crossroads. What would those be?
Well, what has brought you here does not guarantee that you can actually achieve a future that you want with the same tools. This is not only for Kazakhstan, but globally, many countries are facing choices to be made. Those are along a few lines, but it has to be done in an environment of pandemic, climate emergency, and of course, maybe Kazakhstan is not directly affected, but conflicts that are going on around the world with all the displaced people. And many people have to face the challenges of whether directly facing it or the indirect effects in relation to that. And of course, internally, this is also about what kind of economy you would project into the future and what kind of skills that would require, and that would have a lot of bearing on what kind of human capacity you would like to produce with your education system, be it the formal education or the other supporting systems like professional educations. And then how your industry responds to it. And you find the best balance, you invest in the right industries, you invest in the right educational systems, and then you have the right human capabilities. So that's also another important part. For Kazakhstan, what it means, and actually it's a good story to tell, is that I see that a lot of it is already happening, and we can see it in the critical strategy documents of the country. I think what is different from the past in making a choice for the future is about green transformation. And of course, it's especially important for a country like Kazakhstan because we are talking about an energy-intensive growth trajectory that has been followed so far. But you see that in low-carbon development strategy of Kazakhstan itself, actually for 2060, carbon neutrality is projected. So that requires investing into economy differently, with a green perspective, and hopefully to generate new types of jobs as well as income for people. Second, I mentioned the civil service reform, but there is more to be done. Country has prepared a public administration concept note and actually projects a continuation of the modernization of its public administration system. There are many elements, I will not go into it, but also supported with a social code. So that relationship between state and citizens is also to be continuously to be redefined and redefined in new ways. And finally, the digital transformation. The country has this digital and projects also investing in certain ways to all of these. My point is that all of these have to come together around a broader concept of knowledge-based economic transformation that actually brings them together rather than all strategies are defined in their own unique ways. And that is a choice to be made, yet to be defined, yet to be unpacked. And of course, it requires a lot of partnership, and that partnership is between government, civil society, as well as private sector. It's not just a government project. And of course, as international organizations, we are here to support in any way possible. We have been there since the independence. Also, we are very proud to be part of this transformation, and hopefully going and looking into the future, we share this vision of Kazakhstan that is low carbon, that is human capacity-based and knowledge-based, transformed into a Kazakhstan that the country leadership wants. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I was honored to be able to come for Expo 2017, which was also looking at future energy. So I think it very much was on the radar to look at how energy development will occur here. If anyone listening now and watching could they go onto the UNDP site and read the report in more detail? Can they get more information?
Sorry about?
Could anyone who's taking part now as a participant?
Definitely.
They could go to the UNDP website.
UNDP website, the report is available. We have Kazakhstan-specific reports. This year, it's not ready yet, but we intend to have actually a 30-year perspective on Kazakhstan development from the perspective of human development. Hopefully, they can have access to that also. But the global website has the global report that covers all countries, including Kazakhstan, and it's available online.
Mr.
And of course,
Yakup,
they can reach out to us anytime that we can share also.
So your perspective was very valuable. Thank you so very much. And thank you to all the participants and those who sent messages for this first session looking at Kazakhstan's 30 years of independence. There we have to end session 1, but there are many more relevant and interesting topics that are coming up. Before that, we'll give you a chance to take a break. Those of you online watching and want to grab a coffee or get some refreshments, please do come back in time for the next session, session 2, which explores the impact of the COVID pandemic at a global level. That's going to promptly start at 12 p.m. local time. Enjoy your brief break, and we'll see you for the next session. Thank you.